My name is Mike Schuhknecht, and I'm one of the surgeons here at Lakeland's Comprehensive Weight Loss Center. Actually, I say that a little preemptively, but we do have a new surgeon coming in November. And a young lady named Jill Gorsuch, who just finished her fellowship in minimally invasive and bariatric surgery, and has chosen to come work with us here in Southwest Michigan. It's going to be a great added bonus to our program. For the last 8 years, I've run this program by myself, and I'm not as great as I should be. But welcome tonight. Tonight what I want to do is really talk about the disease of obesity. It's an epidemic in our country. It has been for decades. It's getting only worse. Right now in America, 3/4 of us, or 75% of us, are overweight or obese. 35% of us, or a third of us, are morbidly obese. The fastest growing group of patients with this problem, this disease, is number one, are adolescents, and number two, are children. And there's an old statement about heavy children become heavy adults, and that's true 99.9% of the time. So we really need to turn this thing around. And if the biggest group of people being afflicted is our children, our youth, whose job is it to turn the ship around? It's ours, the adults in the room here, that we really need to learn, not only for our own benefit, but for our society's benefit. Because if we don't stop this trend, we're going to all be in trouble. Let me give you some startling numbers. In 1900, how many people in America were morbidly obese? Zero. Statistically, zero. There were some. They probably worked for Barnum and Bailey Circus or something like that. In 1900, how many Americans were overweight? 5%. And I just gave you the 2000 data. That's not 2015. Those numbers are probably worse today than they were in 2000. So in a very short period of time, in 100 years' time, we've really changed how we are, how we live, how we function as human beings in this country. And it doesn't bring along with it many good things. I gotta find my clicker here. So the problem with obesity is that's not heavy. We don't fit in the chairs. We don't fit on the carnival rides anymore. But it brings a lot of baggage along with us. So first of all, when you have a problem, define your problem. And the problem with obesity in this country, we've never defined it. And if we do define it, we define it on a personal level, on a negative scale. We're never positive about it. Always keep your glass half full. It's a lot easier to fix a problem when you're positive about it than when you're negative about it. So what is it to be too heavy? What is it to be overweight, obese, or morbidly obese? Well, on the positive side, you're just not quite tall enough. And what we do use in healthcare and treatment of obesity is this thing called a body mass index, or a BMI. And a BMI is basically, this is a morphologic picture graph of what a BMI is. A BMI is a ratio of your weight in kilograms to your height in meters squared. So it normalizes your weight for your height. A normal BMI is 18 to 25. If anyone's interested what their BMI is, come ask us after the talk tonight and we'll calculate it out for you. You kind of need a calculator to do it. Overweight being 25 to 30, 30 to 35 obese, and 35 and above severe or morbid obesity. They actually have a new class of BMI greater than 60. Right now in America, there's over 2 million people with BMIs over 60. That's probably about 500 pounds plus. So we have a lot of big Americans out today. And that number keeps growing every day, every week, every month, every year. We really got to turn it around. Here's the problem. It doesn't come alone. It comes with friends that aren't so friendly, that aren't so nice. Diabetes. In 1900, what was the incidence of type 2 diabetes in America? Thank you. Zero. Absolutely zero. Same like obesity. In 1940, what was the incidence of diabetes type 2 in America? Darn near zero. It was about 1%. What's it today in America? Adults. 16% of us. A disease that costs $16,000, today's wages, $16,000 a month to treat diabetes. Expensive disease. And it's a disease only of nutrition. It's a disease only of what you put in your mouth. And we'll talk about that later on tonight. So a very, very ugly disease. It leads to blindness, leads to impotence, leads to losing your legs and your arms and being on dialysis and having heart attacks and strokes. Can be prevented by eating the right foods. And the right foods are not hard to figure out. Heart disease, stroke, infertility, the list goes on and on and on. And sleep apnea. Look at that one there. One of the most underdiagnosed, undertreated diseases with the most devastating side effects of any. I mean, it kills people. they call it whatever they want to call it, they die from their sleep apnea. And in America today, about 600,000 deaths per year related to obesity, being overweight or obese. No, excuse me, that's just obesity and morbid obesity. 600,000 deaths. 2/3 are from sleep apnea. The nice thing about all these problems, there's actually 64 comorbid diseases that go along with being overweight or obese. The nice thing about all these things, is there anything nice about them, is they go away when you lose the weight. They go away when you live the right lifestyle and eat the right diet that not I prescribed, or not that your doctor prescribed, but what the world prescribed, what nature prescribed for us. If you're a religious person, I believe in God, what God prescribed for us to eat and how to live. We've gotten away from that, and we'll figure out how we did that tonight. So this is an old slide. I left that in there because it brings up a lot of old questions, and it does have some pertinence, mostly how we misconceived why our problem is what it is today, how to fix the problem. We don't know how. We don't listen to the right answers. Get tired of telling people they're heavy because they're parents. Yeah, my parents were both heavy, but I don't blame them. They taught me bad behavior. They didn't give me a genetic reason to be heavy. And there are some genetic issues related to obesity. There's one syndrome called Prader-Willi syndrome, which is almost uniformly fatal for kids, because they eat themselves to death before they become adults. And I've had to operate on those kids. But interesting thing, the only way you can fix those kids is with bariatric surgery. Most of us don't have that syndrome, by the way. Very, very uncommon. There are some physiologic issues related to obesity or being overweight, and such things as hypothyroidism or low thyroid function, low adrenal function. These are mostly our glandular portions of our body. When they don't function right, we may have a problem with weight. That doesn't give a doctor or a clinician of any kind the right to prescribe thyroid replacement to treat obesity. It's malpractice. It messes your body up for good. Don't do it. The only way to lose the weight, even if you were hypothyroid, you do want to get you back to normal thyroid function. We check all of our patients for these things. But the only way to lose the weight after you've found the problem is to eat and live appropriately. Behavior is where the money's at, and we'll talk about that in depth in a few minutes. Gender, sorry ladies, it's not as good for you as it is for the men in the room. Women have a much easier time gaining weight and a much harder time losing weight. Female fat is different than male fat. Male fat is kind of blonde or pale in color. It tends to be right here in the breadbasket where it's metabolically active. Female's fat tends to be kind of yellowy like chicken fat, and tends to be where? Arms, legs, thighs, breasts, buttocks. Out in the periphery, where it's really hard to get it metabolized and get it mobilized. Psychosocial issues, difficult, very difficult. We are the only country in the world where our heaviest people are our poorest people. Think about it. If you're heavy in any other continent in the world, Africa, Asia, China, and you're poor, guess what? You're not going to be heavy and poor. You're going to be heavy and pretty skinny. You might be swelled up from not having enough nutrition, but you're not going to be obese. In America, what's the cheap food good for? It's cheap. It's cheap all the way across the board. It's cheap in nutrition. It's cheap in cost. And that's the reason we are what we are today. We have to learn to stay away from the manufacture of the processed foods. And learn to remember that, we're all human beings in this game together. We need to help each other out along the way. We can't, Obamacare is an interesting bird or bag or whatever it is, and I don't want to get too political about it. I just can tell you this, it wasn't good for your health or my health. If you're in this room talking to me tonight, you probably do have some form of insurance, which is not Affordable Care Act insurance. The reason I say that is because they don't cover it. Now, if we want to think so or not, everybody in this room is going to have Affordable Care Act insurance in a very short period of time. And what my only political statement is going to be today, do not let your elected officials take away bariatric surgery or treatment of the disease of obesity as a privilege for people of size, which they're probably going to do. So keep that in the little back of your minds the next voting times come along. Listen to the people who are, I guess the Republicans are having a nice little party tomorrow night or something, but listen to what they're saying, because you'll know right away who's going to pay for what and who's not going to pay for what. Obesity is a disease. It is a real problem. And until we address it, we attack it, when we fix it at the grassroots level, that means with you and me together, starting with our children, we'll never fix the problem. And try to fix the children's problem today, you'll be kicked on your butt out the door of the school. They won't let you in to talk about it. They don't want you to talk about it, for whatever reason. And then psychological issues. And that is a very pertinent, germane issue today still. My patients have problems. And why not? Because people of size get treated poorly, so they're going to be depressed. 75 to 85% of my patients come in with clinical depression. It's really interesting when you watch their progress through weight loss, whether it's medical or surgical, half of them lose their depression, completely goes away, gone. The other half show significant improvement. So half go off their medications. The other half may not go off all of their medications, but they'll go off some of their medications. And why is that? Because that group tells us right there, it says half the people that are depressed that go off their medications, they're depressed because of the way society treats them. They lose their depressing affect or their appearance, they're no longer depressed. They fit in well with society. It's amazing. 75% of us are overweight or obese, and yet we're still the minority. But those people get better. The other people that get better, but not completely better, what's their problem? Why are they heavy? Because they're depressed. And what's their coping mechanism? Food, yes. So that's a tough patient to deal with. Yes, we can help them. Yes, we can help them get their things. And we use, me especially, in my practice here at Lakeland, I changed. You know, in the old days, it was get the surgeries done. The more surgeries I did, the more cars I could buy. Nowadays, it ain't doing that. Nowadays, it's get the best outcome for my patients. And I've gotten blessed with a group from St. Joe, Dr. Contardo's group. They're psychologists who have literally not denied patients surgery, but made them stop and think, is this surgery going to make you better? And are you able to deal with the surgery? And the change that's going to affect upon you. And so he has nicely and gratefully basically held some of my patients back. I have not stopped anyone from surgery at all, but some people have to really earn it. And it shows that they may have to go through more therapy because this is a behavioral issue. Keep that in mind. Uh-oh, my computer stopped working. I must have talked too long. And we kind of talked about these stats already. These are a little bit antiquated, but they still the big numbers. Let me show you this slide one more time. This is a color-coded graph of how quickly, from 1990 your top left to 2011 your bottom right, and believe me, 2015 is worse than 2011 was. Every year gets worse. Last year was the first year reported that obesity did not grow in this country. Reported. We see it in our schools. Young people that did grow. So anyway, pretty quick how America is really turning on fire with obesity, and it's not a good thing to see. Very expensive diseases. Again, this is a little antiquist from 2011 from the Wall Street Journal. 117 billion. Excuse me, that was 2007. That number today is in the trillions of numbers. The cost of healthcare related to obesity. We see a lot of things in the media which usually are either detrimental to our well-being, our emotional well-being at least, or just made fun of what's going on. Some of these books are, one book I put up here to stop you from eating fast food, and that's that one there, Fast Food Nation. If your problem is fast food, get that book. You will not eat it again. It's not how they season it that makes it taste the way. It's what's in it that makes it taste the way it tastes. So here's what we came to talk about. Why are we so heavy? What's our problem? What is this disease doing to us, and how do we stop it? Well, there are 4 behaviors that we have learned to disallow. 4 behaviors, if you disallowed these 200 years ago, you'd be dead in a couple of weeks. Okay? Because these are rules of nature. These are rules of creation. These are rules that we were put on earth to eat and live by that we totally gave up on. And you may do 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of these things wrong. If you do all 4 wrong, you have a really big prescription to your recovery. If you do one thing wrong, you have a pretty quick prescription for your recovery. But you can personalize your recovery from your weight based on what your behavior that you do wrong is. Make it personal for you. So when we go through 4 things tonight, think about which of these 4 things I do badly, which of these things I do okay, which things I do great. If you do them great, keep doing them great. If you do them badly, fix your behavior, please. Because it's the only way you can fix the problem. So number 1, drum roll, we eat too much. Hey, that's a pretty easy thing, isn't it? Everything we put in our mouth, we have to burn. If we don't burn it, we store it. And how do we store extra calories in our body? As fat. Now that brings up 2 points. Number 1, those calories can be anything. They can be fat calories or they could be carbohydrate calories. They really cannot be protein calories because protein will not ever make you fat. But carbohydrate calories, which we love in America, energy-dense foods, nutritionally empty foods, are our problem. Potatoes, starch, bread, rice, pasta, potato. Sweets, sugar, glucose, sucrose, dextrose, high fructose corn syrup. These bad things, all processed. They're almost all white too, by the way. bad foods for us. But we eat too much, and we eat too many calories. And part of that is not that we eat too much volume of food, we eat too much energy-dense food, as you'll see in a few seconds. So everything we eat, we have to burn. If we don't burn it, we store it. So how's the best way not to store calories as fat? Don't need them. Don't put them in your body. Don't eat it. Control your appetite. Small meals, small portions. Here's a question I always ask. What's our body signal to start eating? We eat when we are hungry. And what is hunger? Physiologically, hunger is, and I walk a little funny because I just had a new knee put in, but hunger in your body, the grumbling in your stomach, the headache, the can't sleep, I don't feel great, that is your body's bloodstream not having enough blood glucose, our body's fuel, in it, and your brain saying, hey, this ain't right. You better get something to eat. It's a signal to eat to maintain a good body function. That's hunger. That's the easy question, by the way. What's our body's signal to stop eating?
Full.
Yeah, everybody says full, and that's the wrong answer. But that's what we were taught. So our stomach's a safety mechanism for survival, and we haven't had to use it in about 200 years in this country. Your stomach's allowed to stretch. It can stretch 15 to 30 times its native size. Its native size is that of a football. And you need a handful of food to take away your hunger. Do you see how easy it is to overeat? Because your body has a built-in survival tool of your stomach. So if you ever had famine, pestilence, plague, tsunami, or drought, whatever, your neighbors blew up your house, in the old days, you were born, lived, and died in the same place. And that same thing is true today for every animal on earth besides human beings and our pets. And what happens if their locality ran out of food and nutrition? What did they have to do? Move or die. So why can your stomach stretch? So you can pack up every morsel you can find and move on to some more food somewhere. And that's really the only reason your stomach can stretch. Fullness is a sign of stretch of your stomach. So if you ate till you were full, you ate 15 times more than you needed to. If you ate to the point where you had to release your belt, you probably ate 100 times more than you needed. That's like Thanksgiving dinner, isn't it? Yeah. These little guys out in New York eating Nathan's hot dogs. This year's winner, and this is a problem with America. This is a sport in America. This year's winner ate 150 hot dogs, and I forgot what the time period. It wasn't that long. It was like a hot dog a second almost, you know. He's a little skinny guy, by the way. The big guys can't eat as much. You want to know why? I digress. But their abdominal walls are so thick because it's all fat. And yeah, they ate a lot to get to that size, but they can't stretch because there's too much tissue there. So the thinny skin guy, he can stretch his stomach way out, and he trains to do that. It's an athlete, you know. So number one, quit eating too much. Don't eat till you're full. Eat till you are no longer hungry. Hunger is your stimulus. Loss of hunger is your other stimulus to stop eating. Or you can call it loss of appetite, or you can call it satiety. That is the real time to stop eating, because if you ate too much, you're going to store all those extra calories you ate and didn't need to do. So eat slowly, chew your food well, and do not overeat. Rule of thumb, I like sizes, I like spatial things. Palm of your hand, open is a meal. I don't mean 2 feet tall. That's a meal. That's a snack. Okay, cut it in half. So number one, control how much we eat so we don't have to burn all those calories off. Because the only way to burn calories off is to do what? Move, exercise. And the other one is live, and neither one is very effective at burning calories, to tell you the truth. You're better off not eating them. Number two, we don't eat enough. And when I say that, and I say it in that way intentionally, is because we don't eat enough of a lot of things. But when I say we eat enough, we don't eat often enough is what I mean in this context. Right, show of hands, who in this room has eaten 6 times today? It might be a little early to eat 6 times. One person, very good for you. 5 times? 4 times? Good, good. Those are B minuses. 3 times? Good, most of us. 2 times? 1 time. So 50% of us were 2 or 1 time today. Is there a problem with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a big problem with that. And we've learned to let everything in our life take care of everything but numero uno. If there's one thing I want to fix tonight, I want to help you learn to fix, it's yourself. Because the only person that can fix your problem is you. I can guide you, I can educate you, I can stimulate you, I can motivate you, I can bludgeon you. I don't know what I need to do, but it will not work unless you put it into here, your heart and soul. So number one, learn to eat the way we were created to eat. Watch an animal on earth besides a human being or their domesticated pets or livestock. Watch them eat. How many times a day does a squirrel eat? All the time while they're awake. A deer, a fish, a bird. And what do you think human beings did 200 years ago? The same thing. When we were hunters and gatherers or farmers, it didn't matter what kind of society we came from, we woke up, we ate, we did our work, we had a break, we ate, we did our work, we went and looked for more food, we ate. It was a cycle of all day long. My grandfather was a farmer, and he did the same thing. He didn't know he was doing it, but he was doing it right, and he never had a weight problem. He'd have his breakfast every morning at 5 a.m., his lunch at noon with Paul Harvey, and his dinner at 5 o'clock. And he had a little bowl of ice cream at night. Not good food, but he could tolerate it because he was busy working all day long. And he had a little snack of fruit, usually in the afternoon and in the morning, which he'd just pick off the tree when he was working. So learn to eat frequently. 6 times a day is the minimum. Should be 6 to 8 times a day. So I always try to get 6 for my patients and myself too, which I raised my hand at 1 because I've been working today again. Don't like it. But 6 times a day. 3 healthy meals, and healthy meals is important. And 3 healthy snacks. Now, snacks does not mean Little Debbie or Coke or Pepsi or Faygo or Ho-Ho or anybody else. It means healthy, natural foods, just same as meals do, just a smaller portion of it. And there are some really good tasting natural fruits, by the way. If you're missing out on the strawberries that have already gone, the blueberries are just about ready to go because of the dryness, but they're fantastic sweet foods, and they're so good for us. Number 3, we eat the wrong stuff, and I'm sure we've all heard you are what you eat. That's a dietary saying that came out of Columbia, New York, I don't know, 30 years ago. And it's very apropos. It's very appropriate. It's interesting they don't teach the same thing they made their slogan about. But we do eat the wrong stuff. What do we eat in America? We love fast food. What's fast food made out of? It's cheap, right? For them to sell that food for that price, it has to be pretty cheap to make it. It's almost all starch, bread, rice, pasta, potato, and sugar. There's some fat in it too, but usually not good fats. And there are good and bad fats in life. The worst fats for you, by the way, a little side, are the synthetic fats or the processed fats or the produced fats, such as Crisco, oleo, the trans fats of today. The things that they were taught for 3 or 4 generations that these are the way to save yourself are actually nails in our coffin. They will be removed from our market by the year 2019. The FDA has abolished them. Well, what's that going to mean for us as consumers? There's no more potato chips. There's no more cookies. These all have to be made with natural fats. What's the thing true about natural fats? They do what? They spoil. They go rancid. So all those shelves in the grocery store that have processed fats in them, bye-bye. They got to go away. Or find a new way to make them with natural fats. I don't think they can. I don't think, scientifically they can. Maybe they're smarter than I am. I don't know. They probably are. So what are we supposed to eat? What did you have to eat on earth from the very beginning? Fruits, good. Vegetables, meat. And it didn't have to be raw. We had fire back then. We figured that out pretty quick. I think it came from the sky. Lightning hit somebody's one day. Pretty good stuff. The meat tastes better when you cook it. And dairy. And what do we get from those food groups? Fruits, vegetables, meat, and dairy. Energy. So we get some calories, good. And where's the most calorie in nutrition go? Carbohydrates, protein, or fat? Fat is the most energy-dense element of all. Fat has 9 kilocalories per gram. So, and the people say no-fat diets are the best thing for you. Absolutely wrong. You need fat to be healthy and well, whether your integument or your brain, your nervous system needs fat. So fat is very energy dense. So therefore, when we think about that as a person who wants to lose weight, we want to limit the amount of fat we eat, and we want to eat the healthiest fats we can eat. So no trans fats, no Crisco oil or Oreo cookies, and only natural fats. And the natural fats, the omega-3 fatty acids, seem to be our best fats. And those are usually found in cold water fish, but again, a natural fat. In my house, it was interesting. My grandfather, who was a farmer, I remember as a kid when Oleo, as they called it, came out. And I can remember Grandma brought it home from Kroger's, where they always went shopping in Benton Harbor. And it was a tub of white stuff in a little yellow packet. And my grandfather, Albert, My grandma, Lucille, says, Albert, what's this? He says, I think it's crap, throw it away. And I can remember as a kid hearing that. And then 40 years later, hearing it again, or 45 years later, hearing it again from doctors now. And he was right. He didn't know anything about health or nutrition. He just knew it was crap, and he was right. We call those plastic fats or vinyl fats. They're not absorbed by our body. They're not metabolized by our body. They come in, they stay. And that's why trans fats are so bad for you. Natural is the best. Fruits, vegetables, meat, and dairy. And that should be every meal. If you can balance it, it'd be great. A little bit of protein, a little bit of vitamins and minerals, which is what you're getting. Your carbohydrate and your vitamins and minerals are mostly coming from your fruits and vegetables. Fresh fruits and vegetables. You put them in a can, they're no longer any good. Fresh. And that's why losing weight can be expensive. Buying fresh is costly. And it doesn't stay fresh very long. And I bought some bananas, and don't tell me I said that, but my kids love bananas, but they're really bad for us, even as a natural food. And I bought them on Tuesday, and by Wednesday they were brown already. I'm like, my goodness. I must have showed them the air or something. And then in the protein, we get most of that from our meat and our dairy, as well as the fat we get in our diet comes from mostly meat and the dairy too. That's what we should eat. Stay away from the processed foods. So if you go to the grocery store, where can you shop? The walls. Meat, dairy, produce. They put the bakery there. You can't have that. They heard my speech, I think, and went and put that dang bakery on the wall. But everything in the middle, unless it's toilet paper, don't buy it. Yeah. Don't eat it for sure. I mean, toilet paper, that is. So, number one, again, control how much you eat. Watch your portion size. You don't need to fill. You don't need to go. I mean, look at America. Golden Corral. Man, they were lined up around that building 3 times to get in there the other day. It must be good. I've never been there. But you know that buffets are the only place you find a buffet is in America? You can go to Europe, you won't find one. You can go to places that serve Americans, like the cruise ships and the Caribbean. They'll have buffets there. But it's not for the locals. It's for the American tourists that are coming. We're the only group of people that eat beyond their means. And we will. We will definitely eat ourselves out. So number one, control your portions. Number 2, eat frequently, 6 times a day. Number 3, eat natural foods. So small, frequent meals of natural foods. So I always ask this question, why, a lot of times. Why do you want me to jump off that bridge, sir? Well, because I'm your boss. Well, that's not good enough. Give me the real reason. And then you tell me a decent reason. I still won't jump off the bridge. Why should we stay away from these processed foods? What's wrong with them? We talked about the one already, energy density, how many calories per gram of food. We know that certain things like sugars are very energy dense. They have a lot of calories. How much does a 12-ounce can of pop have? 200 calories of regular soda. And how long do you need to walk to burn off 200 calories? 2 hours. So wouldn't it be better not drinking the 200 calories of pop, drinking what nature gave us, which was, oh, no, we can't drink no water. It is water. Without water, you wouldn't be alive. But we don't like to drink water. And maybe it's got stuff in it, too. I don't know. Probably does. Can't taste it. But it's what we're supposed to drink. From the beginning of time until recent time, we had 2 things in life we drank, maybe 3. Your mother's breast milk till she got tired of you. Then water. Some of us found some wine somewhere, too, along the way. Malted beverages. But stay away from those energy-dense foods. So bread, rice, pasta, potato, the white food, the starches, full of energy, full of calories. What's a slice of Wonder Bread have in it? Does anyone know? 1 slice of Wonder Bread. 180 calories. 1 slice. That's not the thin slice one, though. That's not the reduced weight one. How much nutrients is in that slice of Wonder Bread? How about that can of Coke? 0. There's no vitamins, there's no minerals, there's no protein, there's no fat. Those are the 4 basic nutrients we need to be well. And those are the 4 basic nutrients you need to start looking for to make your life healthy again. Because without those nutrients, you are not well nourished. Without those nutrients, you do not have good nutrition. So I have patients who are 800 pounds, they're malnourished, right? Yes. Everyone in this room with weight problem is malnourished. Somewhere along the line, I'll find a deficiency in you, I guarantee it. And there are some deficiencies that are very, very bad for us, such as iron deficiency leads to anemia, B12, a different type of anemia, B6, pellagra, dermatitis, dementia, and diarrhea. Who wants that? And most of the time in this country, we see these things on a day-to-day basis. I can scan this room. I can tell you I will find a deficiency in every one of you because of what we eat. The problem is they haven't become clinically significant yet, so it hasn't gotten your attention yet. And you don't want it to get there. I mean, it's been a long time since we've been dying from scurvy, right? We don't want to go back to those days. So healthy foods in small quantities and frequently. And number 4, everyone's already guessed this one. What's number 4? Hey, we don't move like we should. We have become a very, very sloth-like society. We don't move fast. Heck, some of us don't move at all. Life has changed, you know, and it will continue to change, and that's okay. It's a good thing, as long as we change with it. But we cannot stop moving. And we use our automobiles. It's a relatively new invention. It's been a little over 100 years, right? Since the average man has had a car. I don't have one car at home. Everyone in my house has a car now. One wasn't enough. I grew up with one. And when we wanted to go somewhere, we had to do what? Walk, you know. Now, when I was in school, grade school, I had the choice to take the bus, I guess. We had buses back then. It was uphill both ways in snow, but I chose to walk. And I can tell my kids I did that. So I didn't know that at the time, but I'm glad I did it now. But I never had a weight problem until I stopped walking. I never had a weight problem in my career until I stopped moving. And when I stopped moving was when I became a doctor. So I went from being a student, going to the gym 3 or 4 times a day, going to lecture maybe once a day, going out and playing sports, going out and having fun, doing outdoor things, to being a doctor, standing at a table or sitting in a chair 24 hours a day. Living in a hospital, they don't serve healthy foods. Living in a hospital, they serve stuff you buy on the streets at the grocery stores, because they got to make $1 too. So it's the same stuff other people eat in the hospital, which it shouldn't be. We're an institution of health. But we still sell pop. Makes no sense. Matter of fact, when I first came here, I had to tell this little story because it was cute. It was cute to a point that we don't understand what we're doing, even in our dietary departments. So my patient ordered she had previous surgery. It was just taking care of problems she had here. And she was diabetic, and she was morbidly obese, and she had a gastric bypass. And I said, let her have a low-carb diet. That was my order, a low-carbohydrate diet. So I walked in the room the next morning. She's eating biscuits and gravy, 2 eggs fried, bacon. And again, I don't have a problem with the eggs and bacon. I had a real problem with the biscuits and gravy, hash browns, and orange juice. And the only thing I didn't have a problem with was the eggs and bacon. The rest of it, they could throw away. Juice is just as bad for you as pop. So again, really be careful. But we aren't active enough. We don't exercise enough. And how much exercise do we need to do to be enough? Not much. We just don't do that much. How much do you need? 30 minutes. And then that all be at once. It can be 3 10-minute sessions. It can be on you take a break, go for a walk instead of go sit down and have that ho-ho. Do something every chance you can to stay busy, stay active, because only through activity we can burn calories. Now, activity has 2 functions. Number 1, it helps us burn calories. Very effective. Dietary or exercise-based weight loss programs never work. Why? If you walk and you burn 100 calories an hour and you're eating 3,000 calories a day, man, there ain't enough hours in the day to burn off all the calories you ate. So you can't do it. The math doesn't make sense. But it's still a good thing to do. The best part about exercise, though, is what does it stimulate? Our metabolism. And our metabolism is the other way we burn calories. Our metabolism is the way we should naturally burn our calories. This is what our bodies burn just to live. And believe it or not, by eating the foods we eat and eating infrequently and not being active, we have, as a society, as a group of people, us heavy people, lowered collectively our metabolic rate. It's lowered over the time. And I forget the exact number, it's a hard thing to measure anyway, but they didn't have it 200 years ago, but we've changed our metabolism. And how do we know this is true? Because if we can get you to do the right things and stimulate your metabolism, guess what happens? You lose the weight again. So there are 3 ways to affect your metabolism. And they go from easiest, most effective to least effective. Number 1 is eating frequently. That's why we want to eat often. Not so that we can eat. We should eat, but it's to stimulate our metabolism. When you stop eating, your body thinks of it as starvation. And it can be for a half a day or a week or a month. When your body goes into starvation, what's it do to preserve itself? It slows your metabolism. So how do you stimulate your metabolism? Eat 6 times a day. That's the only way you can do it. Easiest and most effective way to do it. Number 2 is eating protein. And I said earlier, eating is too much fat or too much carbohydrate will give you excess pounds. But protein, you probably can't do that. Why? When you eat carbohydrates or fats, it stimulates glucose, it stimulates insulin release from your pancreas. Thank you. Good. Got a doctor in the room. Should be on TV. Or run for president. But stimulates insulin release from your pancreas to absorb those carbohydrates and put it into the form of blood glucose and fats too. And it's dose dependent. The more sugar, the more fat you eat, the more insulin you have to release. And that's okay for a meal or 2. But you do that for every meal, every snack, day in and day out, guess what happens? Your insulin becomes ineffective. It's like noisy kids. Sometimes you just don't hear them anymore. Well, that's what happens in our body. Insulin has we've seen so much glucose and so much carbohydrate load, fat load. We made so much insulin, it just becomes ineffective. Our body's insulin becomes ineffective. So the body has to make a mechanism to survive, right? And what's the body going to do? For the same load of sugar or fat that you got today or 3 weeks ago, you have to get an added bonus dose today because it got resistant. Develop insulin resistance, you need more insulin for it to work the same way it used to work. So as we eat too much sugar and too much fat, too many carbohydrates and too much fat, we develop this insulin resistance, glucose intolerance. We get hyperinsulinemia. We're getting more and more insulin in our body. Now, what's insulin's job, by the way? To take those calories we eat and utilize them, carbohydrate and fat calories, and utilize them. How do we utilize them? We want to burn them up, right? Well, insulin does do that. Puts it in the cells to help our heart work good and our legs and our arms and our brains work good. Insulin's also the guy that helps store it if we don't burn it. That's insulin's job. So the more insulin you have in your body, guess what? The more fat you're going to store. Absolutely. And who's in the room's diabetic? On insulin. Anyone on insulin? And tell me about your insulin level. Not on insulin? Not on insulin. Okay. It's hard to, you are insulin. And what happens every time you go to the doctor? What happens when you go to the doctor? Do your sugars go up? Are your sugar rates going up? And they give you more insulin? You got them plateaued. Good for you. And you did that through diet, didn't you?
No.
No? Good. Insulin. Okay. But you had to adjust your diet. Otherwise, you would still be getting more and more insulin every time you went back. And every time you got more and more insulin, what happens to your pounds? They go up and up and up. People on insulin cannot lose weight. It's physiologically impossible. And I have. And even the endocrinologists I've talked to about it, and they agree with me. But they're working on a different set of rules, and I don't want to get into that because it's political again and it's money. But if they don't keep your A1C at a certain level, they get punished. Your doctor does, which is completely out of our control. But that's the way our government works today. So you have to understand that insulin, when stimulated naturally, an apple, an orange, a glass of milk, they'll have sugar in them. You get a low dose of insulin with that. But a candy bar or a slice of Wonder Bread or a can of Coke, you're going to get a bolus of insulin, and you're going to get the same you're going to get the same response from it. Now that brings me all the way back to one more step in that story, by the way. What's the final step? And that's how you become a type 2 diabetic. Sooner or later, that insulin becomes completely resistant. It doesn't work no more. And then you have to go on pills, and most likely it's sooner or later injections of insulin, because your own insulin's not working anymore. Now, how do you reverse that? How do you get yourself off of insulin? Stop eating the foods that make insulin come out of you. So that means you can eat fruits, vegetables, meat, and dairy, small meals, eat frequently. You cannot eat bread, rice, pasta, potato, glucose, sucrose, dextrose, high fructose corn syrup. Those will keep you diabetic and keep you sick. Protein's different. When you eat protein, we don't release insulin from our pancreas. When we eat protein, we release glucagon from our pancreas. Did you know that one? No. That's pretty good. Glucagon from our pancreas. And glucagon does something completely different. Glucagon helps us do two really important things physiologically. Number one, helps us maintain our lean body mass. It does not like this loose, fluffy stuff on us. It likes our muscles. It likes our bones. It wants them to be dense and firm and good. healthy. It also takes your stored fat cells or your stored energy and puts it back into your bloodstream as glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. So glucagon is the guy that makes you be able to get rid of those stored fat cells, helps you mobilize it again. And where do you get glucagon from? Eating protein and exercise. It all makes sense, perfect sense. But nobody's ever told us that because they're more important about selling us a ding-dong, a ho-ho, or a Twinkie, or a Coke, or a Pepsi, or whatever they're trying to sell us. The biggest industry in this country today, and will always be, is what? Food. You need it to survive. But you don't need bad food. That's killing you. Okay? So 4 things: small meals, eat frequently, stay away from starch and sugar, and be active. What can we do without surgery to lose weight? And believe me, if you can do it without surgery, do it without surgery, please. The best way to do it is without surgery. I played with my weight for about the last 25 years I've been a doctor. So the last 25 years I've had a problem with my weight. Just had a knee replacement surgery. I knew going into it I did not want to carry this weight. And I'm happy to say I just need some new suits now. I lost 30 pounds for surgery. I'm going to lose 30 more or so, I hope, and in my recovery. And I'm not going back ever again. Because part of the reason why I had to get a knee was my weight. Biggest problem, probably. So what do we have besides surgery? The things I did. Got more active, exercised more, changed how and what I ate, when I ate, how much I ate. That's dietary therapy for sure. Pharmacotherapy, we do prescribe drugs here, and it's kind of a new era for drugs for weight loss. For the last, I've been in practice for 25 years. We had 2 drugs, really 2 types of drugs. We had Orlistat, which is a lipase inhibitor. It helps you not absorb the fat you eat, based on the premise that fat's the problem. It's not the problem. It wasn't a very nice drug anyway. It made you have lots of gas, flatus, and ruin a lot of undershorts. Your friends kind of left you. It smelled a little bit. And the weight loss was like 2 pounds after 12 months, so not worth the investment, so to say. The other drug was Adipex or phentermine. It's a stimulant. They've been the most common weight loss drugs for decades. I spent 3.5 years in New York working on morbidly obese patients and caring for them. About 2 or 3 times a day I'd have a model come in my office because I was a weight loss center. And she had a BMI of maybe 15. And she wanted Adipex or phentermine, you know. Or there was males that had the same problem. They smoked cigarettes and they had cocaine and drank a lot of Diet Coke. But they had body dysmorphic issues. They didn't know that their weight was actually under good and bad. But there are some new drugs out, and these drugs are based on behavior, a little bit with appetite control, but mostly behavior. The 3 new ones, which I do prescribe all, Contrave is a drug that's basically Wellbutrin. It's an antidepressant mixed with a narcotic antagonist. But that narcotic antagonist, if you take it unopposed, gives you a sense of well-being and of wellness and you know, machismo. And it makes you feel good about yourself. And the Wellbutrin makes you think better, helps you think and make better decisions. It's a good OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder drug. We've always used it for that, smoking cessation, so forth. It works really good for weight loss too. And that's been my best drug for the last couple of months, Contrave. It takes about a month to work. It's about $70 a month without the insurance, $55 with the insurance. There is a new one called Belviq. You've tried Belviq? Yeah. Did it work? Yeah. Belviq's another brain drug. Try to help you take away your appetite. It's not too unsimilar than the old fen-phenin redux. It's a serotonin inhibitor. Serotonin 2C selective in this drug, though, so it doesn't interfere with your heart and your lungs like the old drugs did. The fen-phenin redux killed millions of people, at least hundreds of thousands of people. So it's a very safe drug. It's been proven. It just haven't seen it in clinical outcomes, the good results. I've had some patients do great with Belviq, others so not so good. And then the last one is Qsymia. And Qsymia is phentermine, which is a stimulant we talked about, mixed with naltrexone. Topamax, you're right, topiramate, yeah. Naltrexone is the opiate antagonist. So Topamax is an anti-seizure drug. We noticed that in kids take it, they didn't need as much and they lost weight. Well, that's the only indication it got put in this drug for. It has worked in some patients. It's a good appetite suppressant, but that's about all it does. I'm still a little worried about that phentermine part of it too, so I don't prescribe Qsymia.
There's some other diabetes medicine also.
Yeah, there's some new diabetic medicines that help us absorb the sugars we eat differently. That's what gastric bypass surgery does, by the way. Those drugs came out of bariatric surgery. Kind of slipping on their names, like Byetta is one of them.
Byetta.
Yeah, Byetta is one of them. There's another one that's really popular now. But they help us not absorb the calorie as we eat it. So they help us better manage the absorption of that calorie, those bad calories. But it's only indicated for diabetes. And it does help patients with diabetic lose weight, absolutely. And the right answer is use what you need to use to get your problem solved. The biggest influential person or thing in your recovery will be you, though. What does Lakeland have to offer? I'm going to sit down for a second. We have Med Fitnesses run by our physical therapy group. This is only offered at the outpatient service building on Hollywood Boulevard. It's a one-time initiation fee. I believe it's $40, and then a monthly user fee. So every time you go, every month you have to pay your, I think it's 30 or 40 bucks again. Not bad for a workout club. It's directed, it's guided. They use our dietary group at Lakeland to help bolster it up with appropriate education on food and nutrition and cooking and so forth, shopping. FLIP is the Fitness Lifestyle Improvement Program. It's offered both at the North County Outpatient Services again, in South County here at the YMCA. It is an 8-week course. It's a single fee. I think it's $250. Sometimes covered by insurance, sometimes not. Most times not. Self-directed exercise, kinda. There is a physical therapist present just because they kind of reciprocated for us on the dietary side. This is run by our dietary group. Teaches you how to eat, how to shop, how to cook, and so forth, how to be busy and how to exercise. Great course, great foundation, but I think that's about the problem with it. Our problem's lifelong. And we can't fix it today and be gone with it tomorrow. We have to live with it for the rest of our lives. We'll always be an alcoholic. If you reverted from drinking alcohol, you're still an alcoholic. A heavy person is always going to be a heavy person, and we can easily regress right back to where we came from, even with surgery, if we don't stay with the appropriate behavior. So behavior change is permanent for us. Medical weight loss and surgical weight loss is basically what I do here. I have 2 registered dietitians at the present. We're going through a little change there. We have 2 nurse practitioners who teach us both the medical and the assist me on the surgical side. We're growing in the future with a new doctor and another nurse practitioner. So we teach people how to eat, what to eat, how to live, and if they need the help with surgery, we give them surgery. A few things about surgery I don't want to spend a lot of time tonight talking about, and we're going to show you some befores and afters just to sell my point a little bit, make you want to sign up for it. But just remember this, it is just a tool. It's a tool to help you. It is a very, very effective tool. Medical weight loss fails 95% of the time in the first year, 98% of the time in the first 5 years. So medical weight loss programs typically do not work. 2% succeed. 95% of most bariatric surgeries will succeed. 95%. Now that's my practice. Those aren't national numbers. National numbers are around the 80%. It depends on the operation. But it is a very, very effective tool for helping you do one thing. Change your behavior. It's going to punish you if you misbehave. So what do we have? We have 2 types of surgery. I offer 3 surgeries here at Lakeland. We have 2 restrictive surgeries, the lat band, which is really kind of fallen out of vogue. I do them in very unique situations still. I still manage a lot of lat band patients. Then we have the sleeve gastrectomy, 3rd from the top. The VBG's gone out of vogue completely. It's not being done anywhere except that I know of in one place, and that's in Tennessee. And then gastric stapling is almost the same thing as a VBG. The next set of operations, I do one. I do the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. The biliary pancreatic switch, we'll see that in a second. Do a switch, same thing. Long limb bypass. These are unhealthy operations in my mind and excessive tools for most of my patients. Although I'll tell you this, I don't operate on 500-pound patients anymore. My largest patient I ever operated on was 1,000 pounds. My largest patient I ever seen was 2,000 pounds. So people can get pretty big. The 2,000-pound person didn't want surgery. She lived with her 2 kids. It was the saddest day of my life, I think, as a doctor. I walked up to their trailer. They had a mobile home. They lived in a park. And knocked on the door, and the 12-year-old daughter answered the door, and she said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Dr. Schuhknecht." And she said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "I'm here to see your mom." And he says, "What for?" I said, "Well, I'm a weight surgeon or weight doctor, and her doctor asked me to come see her. She couldn't get out of the house. She couldn't get out of the room she was in." And she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Please don't help my mom." What? She says, I love her to death, but she's killing me and my brother. We can't take care of her anymore. And she won't let anyone else come in and take care of her. And there was no one else to take care of her. So this poor 12-year-old had to live with her mom for I don't know how long, probably a long time, being her only caregiver, provider. I don't know how they got their food. I don't know how they paid their bills. I'm sure she got all that through the mail those days. But it was sad. I mean, it was really sad. She died about a month later. And I only know she weighed 2,000 pounds because when she died, they kind of made a news event out of it, which I thought was pretty rude. And they had to take her to a weigh station on a semi-bed and weighed her, which the medical examiner asked for, which I thought was ridiculous. I mean, she's dead. She's passed. Don't disgrace her anymore. But human curiosity, I guess. The 1,000-pound patient, I made him go into the hospital. One of my things is you have to walk, and I've made some exceptions. I had a bilateral amputee. He didn't have to walk because he couldn't walk. But this guy could walk, and he couldn't walk when I first met him. I said, I'll operate on you when you can walk. He says, well, I can't walk. I don't have the strength. And he didn't. He's 1,000 pounds. Your body's not meant to hold 1,000 pounds. So the hospital I worked for at the time was Harper Hospital in Detroit, and I always praise them for what they did for this gentleman. They put him in the hospital. They put him in physical therapy for 3 months. Had the medical doctor see him. We diuresed him. We got him down to 800 pounds, and in 3 months, he lost 200 pounds. We operated on him. Today, he still drives the bus for that hospital. He's 175 pounds. So, yeah. He was 35 years old when I did his surgery 15 years ago, so he's 50 today. Yeah. So, neat stories, and again, these things do work. I put this up here because I want you to see what other things are being done in our community, and not so much locally around here, but there is one surgeon in the state of Michigan that does this operation. This is called the BPD, or the duodenal switch. It's a very malabsorptive operation. It means you don't, it's like similar to the old intestinal bypass. We don't do that anymore either. Where you basically put your mouth on your anus and you can eat whatever you want and it just comes out there. You don't live very long though. But you can see here, we can think of some pretty wicked things if we want to. So here what we did is we took the stomach and we resected the whole greater curvature of it. This is called a sleeve gastrectomy if you stop there, okay? You made a tube out of the stomach. Now this operation makes a pretty big tube. They make a 50 French tube. Then you divide the small bowel. This and this used to be connected right here. And we reattach this into this last 2 feet of small intestine. Now all the enzymes for absorption of your food come from the pancreas and the liver. Some come from the stomach. Those you have still in this operation, but these you don't. These are all coming down here, bypassed from the food in the stomach. All the way, it's all you get is enzymes in here, and they get connected back in right there. You have 1 foot of small intestine to gain your nutrition you need to be well. And that means your vitamins, your minerals, your protein, your fat, and the calories you need to be well. So guess what? These people don't do well because of that. And one of the biggest problems with this is malabsorption leads to too much malnutrition. They come in malnourished. They can't absorb the nutrients they need. They absolutely must be on supplements for the rest of their life and high amounts of supplements to do well. And I've sent one patient for this operation in my life. It was a lady who failed a gastric bypass. She had this operation. She lost so much weight I couldn't even recognize her. She begged and pleaded me I could reverse her operation for her. Well, I couldn't reverse the resection part, but I reversed the rest of it. She went from 385 pounds with a gastric bypass. She went down to like 350, went right back up to 390. She had a duodenal switch. She went down to 120, 110. And then I reversed her. She went back to 380 pounds. Oh. So, but she looked a hell of a lot better than she did with that operation. So I don't do this operation. I just think it has too many critical errors in it. And I think less is more in healthcare. Less is more in surgery for sure. Just got my bill for my knee surgery. I don't think they believe that at Lakeland, but take that off of the camera there. But a good operation for weight loss, but just a high mortality rate is the bottom line. Lots of malabsorption. This is the sleeve. A very simple operation. I always say a monkey could do this one. I love it. It works. It's easy. Man, is it nice. But an operation where I use a 36 French bougie, which is a tube. I put it through your mouth and down along the lesser curvature of your stomach. And I just basically take a stapler and staple up along the side of your stomach. Every operation we do today is done laparoscopically or robotically. We also have a robot here now. But it's the same kind of thing, minimally invasive surgery. One night in the hospital, go home the next morning. Slick operation, it's a restrictive operation. If you eat too much, eat too fast, the food gets caught, stuck in your throat. You get pain, then you vomit. Now, us as human beings, we don't like pain, we don't like vomiting. If you eat your food slowly, like we talked about earlier, if you eat frequent small meals, if you chew your food well and enjoy it, guess what? It'll pass right through there. You won't have a single problem in the world. And that's true for the gastric bypass and the band too. But if you horse yourself, if you push yourself, if you go to the buffet, if you eat too much, supersize me, you're going to be in the toilet. Okay? Punishment for bad behavior. Nothing wrong with that. My kids could have used some of that growing up, I think. The school wouldn't let me. Whole nother story. So, no malabsorption, none of that bypassing the intestinal tract. Patients that have sleeves say something to me that I just love. Man, Doc, I'm no longer hungry. And I actually have some patients, I have to have them set their watch or their phones to remind them to eat. So if they don't, they'll die. But they lose the appetite. Why do they lose appetite with a sleeve? Because you're taking out that big floppy fundus, the part of the stomach that can stretch, so your stomach can no longer stretch. You can eat what you normally ate, you have to slow down, but you can't hold food in your stomach anymore. You have lost your reservoir with the sleeve, and a band, and a bypass. So when you remove that big part of the stomach called the fundus, the stretchy part, you also remove a lot of cells that make a substance called ghrelin. And that's this guy here, ghrelin, G-R-H-G-L-I-N. And ghrelin we found out through bariatric surgery, again, another discovery. And this is where I'm going to run out of business. When they find the drug that makes that thing, I'm in trouble. Wish I was a drug manufacturer. And I know they're working on it right now. But when you take ghrelin out of your stomach, ghrelin's what makes your stomach growl. Ghrelin's the hunger peptide. And when you have no ghrelin in your system, you're not hungry. So what does ghrelin come from? It comes from the fundus of the stomach. So when the stomach gets decompressed or flattened, ghrelin fires. You get hungry. You get hunger pains. So you take out them cells, you take out the ghrelin, you don't get the hunger pains anymore, and it does work. And the last thing it does, and we don't understand this very well, and we don't know why it does it, but it does it, it alters the way we absorb our carbohydrates, just like a gastric bypass does. Not to the same degree as a gastric bypass, but very close. So I'll give you that in numbers of resolution of diabetes. With a gastric bypass, diabetes resolves itself about 90% of the time. Type 2 diabetes. With a sleeve, it's about 80% of the time, so it's about 10% less than a gastric bypass. But a nice operation, a very quick recovery. Sleeves work, they really do work. And I was a naysayer. I grew up doing gastric bypass. I did 10,000 gastric bypasses. This thing came on the street, and I said, well, I was doing lap bands at the time. I said, it does the same thing as a lap band, right? Yeah, it does the same thing as a lap band, but it works better. And I said, well, let's put it through a few years of trials before I start doing it myself. And the other thing that happened, the insurance companies didn't cover it at the time. So about 3 years ago, Medicare said, okay, yeah, we'll cover it. The evidence is great. It was first used as an operation to take up someone of supersize, 800, 900 pounds, do the sleeve to them. It's very easy to do quick and easy. They could tolerate that operation. They couldn't tolerate a gastric bypass that way. Do the sleeve, come back a year later and do the bypass. Well, we found out after about 15,000 patients, not one person went for the bypass. They stopped at the sleeve. They didn't have to have the bypass. So that's when Medicare approved it. And it does work. A nice operation. Robotically, it has 5 holes. Laparoscopically, it has 3 holes. These patients go home the next day. Biggest risk with the sleeve is probably reflux, if that's a true risk. It does potentiate reflux if you have pre-existing reflux, but it does work. And it's 85% of my surgeries today. The other 15% is mostly bypasses and then an occasional band. This is a gastric bypass, an operation where we basically make your stomach into a small pouch. We then went downstream from your stomach. This is all bypassed. We divided the bowel there, the small bowel. We brought the bottom limb up and attached it into your pouch, and we reattached the top end into your side of your small bowel there. It forms a route in the shape of a Y. That's what Roux-en-Y means in French. This operation works on 4 fronts. Number 1, it reduces how much you can eat. Number 2, how fast you can eat, just like the sleeve or the band. Number 3, it tells you what you can eat. If you eat sugar this operation, you'll be having a problem. And number 4, you can see there is some malabsorption. Nothing close to the old duodenal switch, but but some malabsorption. Very, very effective operation for weight loss. 95% of my patients will lose 85% of their excess body weight and maintain that for life, 85% for life. About a 95% resolution of diabetes in my practice. So you gotta eat the right foods. The problem with this operation, if you eat sugar after it, you're having problems. So this operation takes you away from eating sugar, and some fats too. It has to do with insulin. Remember when you ate food before, it went into your mouth and into your stomach. It sat in your reservoir for a while, so the body needs some energy. This little muscle opens up and it goes a little bit of food at a time into the small bowel. We take away that muscle with this operation and the food comes right from your mouth right into the small bowel. If that food is energy-dense sugar, your body will make the appropriate amount of insulin for that sugar. Dense sugars, lots of insulin. What about your blood sugar? What's your blood sugar doing? It's 0. Now you just put a whole bunch of sugar in your body, but it's not in your bloodstream. Now you're getting to a negative number. Diabetics don't like to be hypoglycemic, do they? No. So what happens when you're hypoglycemic? You lose your energy, you lose your focus, you may get diaphoretic palpitations, you may pass out, you might even die. The body tries to fix this problem very quickly. It takes about 3, 4, 5, 6 liters of fluid. Your body's about 80% water anyway. It takes a bunch of water, goes into the GI tract to dilute the sugar out, to turn off the insulin pump, and it does that very quickly, usually about 15, 20 minutes. You would clinically start to wake back up thinking, man, what happened to me? Start looking for a toilet. That water and that sugar are coming out of you. Again, another stimulus you don't want to really encounter too often. And if you want to hear some funny stories, I got a whole bunch of them from patients. So. And then again, the malabsorption does help you not gain calories. We only bypass about 150 centimeters of small intestine. You have about 30 feet. This is 150 centimeters, okay? So we don't bypass like we used to in the old days. It doesn't help you lose weight, and it just adds more nutritional issues for you. But a very good operation for weight loss. Then the lap band finally, another picture of it here. We placed a silicone, no latex whatsoever, over the top part of your stomach, making a very small reservoir, pouch, so to say. That band, if you look at it, the band on the left is the one you'll get in Mexico, by the way. That's the band I used in 1998 when I was part of the Phase C trials for the lap band placement. This is the first generation band. This is the newest generation band. There was one in between. We don't see it no more. If you go to Mexico, this is the band you get there. I think. They just sold the company. The new company may be selling the new band. I don't know. Not many American surgeons are putting in bands anymore, but they're putting a ton of them in Cancun and Nicaragua, Grand Caymans. Matter of fact, my best job opportunity right now is offshore. I get rid of the insurance companies, I get rid of the government and the lawyers. But the band does work. I can tell you this, I've been a big band supporter since 1998 when I first started putting them in. The band became approved for public use in 2001. It has gone through some changes over the years. It's staying where it's at now. The band works in the person who eats too much and too fast. The band does not work well in the person who eats too much sugar. Because no matter how tight you make that band, sugar still goes through. Sugar's a liquid, right? By the time we get it down to our mouth. Very, very low risk operation, very, very safe operation, and those are very positive things about it. But its efficacy is pretty low. Nationwide, excess body weight loss with the lap band is 35%. Excess weight loss with the sleeve, 85%. Gastric bypass, 90 to 95%. 35% is pretty low. And people get mad. I got a band, man. How do I make that band work? Well, the band will work if you eat and live right. Bands can slip. I have got plenty of patients that'll tell you that. Slipping means you have to go back and have it repositioned. So it's not without future operations. But again, it does work. And I'll show you some before and afters that work very, very well. Old slide from my friend Paul O'Brien, who showed that the band and the bypass can be equally effective over time. The band just loses it, takes longer to lose it with, and that's true. So these are this is an old slide. It's not really up to date anymore. I should remove it. But 95% of my patients go home in one day. Bariatric surgery has some risks. These risks have really, really reduced. I had the mortality rate on this slide. This is from 2008 or 9 when I made this slide. That new number up top is now 0.1% with bariatric surgery. When I started out in bariatric surgery in 1998 as an attending, it was 5%. So we went from 5 per 100 dying with bariatric surgery to 1 per 1,000 in my career. And we should only keep getting better. I don't know if we can get better than we are, but we'll keep trying to get better. What are the most common complications we see? Since I've been here at Lakeland, I've had one mortality. Blood clots. We're really serious about them. We make you stop your birth control pills. We make you exercise. We make you walk. If you're in the hospital, we'll make you walk there too. Yeah, everywhere we see you, make you walk. Get out of bed. We use heparin before and during and after surgery, just like if you had a knee replacement surgery. They use Coumadin still, which is kind of archaic. But in really high-risk patients, still today, we can send you home on heparin still, sometimes necessary. I usually use Lovenox. It's an injectable heparin. You give it to yourself once a day. Strictures can happen with gastric bypasses more than anyone else. Anemia is not common unless you're in a gastric bypass, but things can occur, and we try to avoid them. So if you're from Missouri, you say, show me, so we will. This is a very dear friend of mine and patient. Both of them are husband and wife team. She's had surgery, he hasn't. I saw them both this spring. They came out to pick mushrooms at my house, and they're both skinny minis. They both look wonderful and feel great. She was morbidly obese, there's no doubt about it, but her biggest concern was her insulin requirements, 800 units a day. I mean, how many units come in a bottle? I think 400, right? 1,000 in a bottle? So she's going through a bottle a day. You know what the cost of a bottle of insulin is now? It's a lot, because all my patients can't afford it no more. How much? After insurance? Before insurance? Yeah. She used it a day, yes. So she had a gastric bypass, the best choice for her. She got down to 0 insulin and lost 104. She's actually lost 125 pounds, I think, to date. She also lost her high blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, her sleep apnea, all those sore joints. They're all gone. Now, unfortunately, after about 2 years of being insulin-free, she started having some problems with hypoglycemia at night. And it was strange. The treatment was insulin. It just made no sense to me. And I'm not an endocrinologist by any means. She's on 4 units of Levemir, long-acting insulin at night. So she's really not on much anymore. And loves life tremendously. Her reason for having gastric bypass surgery was diabetes, but really it was her renal function. Her creatinine got up to 2. Her creatinine is now 0.6. And which they always told us you couldn't get it back. Once you lost it, you couldn't get it back. Take away the offense, you'll get it back, as long as you get it in time. So she was afraid of going into renal failure dialysis, and she didn't want that ever in her life. So she worked very hard and lost her weight to get away from it. Here's a dear friend of mine who's got a lot of funny stories with him and a lot of sad stories with him, but he was 687 pounds, or 678 pounds, something like that. And really an ambitious guy, loved to hunt and fish, still does to this day. Came from the Toledo area. I saw him in Detroit when I was working there. Anyway, he came in, his wife was 387 pounds. He came in and had a gastric bypass and did great with it. He went from being 687 pounds, he's down to 185 pounds today. He's had other surgeries to get rid of a lot of that skin and stuff, but did very, very well. Lost his diabetes, lost his sleep apnea, lost his sore joints, lost his high cholesterol, all those things that went away. He was on 44 pills, is on 0 pills today. So really effective for him. The interesting about this man's story is his son. Now, when I met him, his son was probably about 12 months old and was kind of jammed into a baby carrier. I mean, didn't really fit. And mom was sitting on one side of the table, dad was on the other side, and the baby was next to mom. And she had him on the table in that carrier right up top here. And I kept talking to the dad, and I thought, my goodness, that baby stopped breathing at least 6 times already. And after I started paying attention. So then I started watching the baby, talking and watching that baby. He stopped breathing another 10 times. And these conversations were usually about a half hour, these meetings. And so I got done talking to the dad. I said, you know, I got something heavy on my heart, and I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm not going to let you take your baby home tonight. And they were from Toledo. I was in Detroit. Not that they're that far, but they're not really close either. He said, what's the matter? I said, your baby stops breathing. Well, he just breathes funny. I said, no, that ain't funny. That's apnea. That's apneic. He's stopping breathing. And if he does it at night, they're going to call it crib death, and it's not crib death. This baby's got sleep apnea. Let me weigh your kid. Okay. So I weighed the baby, and I didn't know anything about infant obesity at the time. I've learned a lot since. I weighed the baby. I measured the baby. His BMI was 95. He was bigger around than he was tall. He was a little Buddha ball, you know, a little cute little kid, but he had sleep apnea. Now, fortunately, this was my last appointment for the day. I think it was like a 5 o'clock appointment or something. I got on the phone and started calling every bariatric doctor I could find in the country, from Los Angeles to New York. People I trained with, people I worked with, people I knew of, hoped they could help me. Not one person could help me. Now, these people lived in Ohio, and I was in Michigan. And Ohio and Michigan just don't get along for some reason. This guy had a Michigan hat on. I said, what the hell, I'll call Ohio State. And I had a dear friend, Brad, who's a surgeon at Ohio State, and I said, Brad, I know you can't help me, but can you direct me to somebody who can help a 1-year-old, a 12-month-old infant who's got a BMI of 95 and stop breathing 5 times every 5 minutes here in my office? He says, we just got a brand new pediatric bariatrician. And this is about 15 years ago, like I said. I said, interesting, can I talk to her? And he said, yeah, she's just in my office. We were just having a conversation. She just started this week. I said, well, great. So I got on the phone with her. I said, can you help me out? And she said, I don't know if I can or not, but I'll try. I started my job this week, you know. So I said, well, I have a hard time putting this baby in the car because I don't think it'll make it to your hospital without need to be observed. She said, oh, absolutely not. Do not put that baby in mom's car or dad's car. Send it by ambulance. So I'm in Detroit. I called an ambulance, sent the kid to Ohio State University, basically, via ambulance, and Dad drove behind. The baby spent 3 months in the hospital, in the ICU. Had to make a CPAP helmet, because babies aren't going to wear a mask, they're going to pull it off. And so first CPAP helmet was his baby. And it's unfortunately been repeated again in this country many, many times since, but never diagnosed before. He was the first, his kid was the first one ever diagnosed. So neat story. And here's 2 gastric bypass patients. I only showed 1 picture because this is my friend TJ, and he used to work for us here at Lakeland. He doesn't mind if I give his name out. He's a very proud gastric bypass person. He's down to 185 pounds himself, and he's 6'2". But he came to me as the healthiest, heavy person I have ever met. He was nearly 500 pounds, and he did not have one health problem. He could tell you his knees hurt a little bit at the end of the day. That's about it. No problem with glucose or blood pressure or lipids. Just a big guy, and probably because he was young still, in his 30s. He had a gastric bypass. I said he's down to 185. His wife is a nurse still. She, after having 2 kids and working as a nurse, she gained a lot of weight. She said, I can't stand being heavy along my skinny husband, so I want the surgery too. She had the surgery. Now they're both living in California with their family. She can make more money as a nurse than he could in his job, so he stays home with the kids and she works. And great, great people. Lap band patient who's lost to date 115, 120 pounds. Funny story about her is she had a lap band. She did very, very well with it in the first year. She went from 122 on the left picture to 510 of 2011 the following year. Yep, 10 to 11. So not even a year, she's lost 90 pounds. She did everything right. And she had all this extra skin hanging, and she didn't like it. She wanted it gone. It was just before the holidays, just before the Thanksgiving holiday. So she came in the office. She said, what about my tummy tuck, doc? I need to get rid of the skin. It's driving me nuts. You know, I said, well, you're 89 pounds down. You got to lose 10 more pounds before the insurance company will pay for it. You got to lose 100 pounds. So go home. I'll give you a little fluid. Go home. Eat well, be well, exercise, lose that 10 pounds. I'll see you back after the holidays. We'll do your tummy tuck. So she went home. I did her fill. She drank her water. She did fine. She went home. An hour later, I get a phone call. That water, I just threw it up. Maybe I put too much fluid in your band. Come on back in. Took that fluid out. She should be fine, right? She still threw up. So I slipped her band when I adjusted her. Over almost a year out from surgery, I slipped her band. Over a year out from surgery, I slipped her band. And she came back in. I said, oh boy, I got to take your band loose. I didn't take it out. I just unbuckled it so she could eat again and let the body heal. She went from Thanksgiving to Christmas. On New Year's, she called me and threatened my life. I've gained 60 pounds. Ooh, ow. So we came back in, repositioned her band. She went back all the way down to normal. She still has her band. She's interesting. She got married this last summer, summer before this one, and she was going to Venice, Italy for her honeymoon. And they were going on a cruise ship. She said, I'm on my honeymoon, and I'm on a cruise ship. Can you take the fluid out of my band? I said, really? She said, you know what happened last time we did this? She said, yeah, I know. I said, I can do it, but and really going overseas, you really want your band decompressed anyway. You don't want to go to Europe without anyone to be able to take care of you there. And that's really one of the problems with bands in Mexico. Who's going to take care of it once you get back home? And I do take care of patients who have surgery in Mexico, But unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop because I can't make money doing it. I don't get paid. You get paid for the surgery. I don't get paid for the post-operative care. So I don't know what my future is. I will probably keep the ones I have already, but I don't know if I can take any new ones from overseas. And unfortunately, we see more and more people going overseas for surgery. Another lap band. And again, when this patient came to my office, I said, lap band? No. You know, you got too much work for a lap band. I don't want anything else. But let me tell you what a lap band's going to do for you. You know, you're going to lose 60, 70 pounds, and you need to lose 3 times that. And he said, well, I understand what you're saying, Mike, and I appreciate that, but that's the only thing I want. I don't want anything but a lap band. So she got her lap band. She's lost 150 pounds to date and has had all her work. But I told her the one thing that she did wrong, her sin was sugar. I said, I'll tell you what. You shake my hand. I'll give you a lap band. You stop eating sugar. And I'll keep up to mine in the bargain, but you're going to keep up to yours in the bargain too. And I'll know if you're not. She never once ate sugar again. She still don't eat sugar. Now, she eats fruits and vegetables. That's sugar there. She'll eat blueberries and strawberries, but she won't eat the candy, the cookies, the ice cream, those over-dense caloric foods. And did very well. And here's one of my favorite guys who's still back in my life again today. You can see in his first picture, those are a few empty belt loops there. Those are the belt loops he lost prior to surgery. He did that on his own. So I knew, I didn't care what operation he got, he'd do well with whatever operation I gave him. And most of our preoperative treatment plans are about 6 months long before we get to the OR. Why? To make these things happen. And because the better you are going in, the better you are coming out. And anyway, he lost over 200 pounds. I saw him just before I left for and a lot of issues too, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. He got sent to me from an orthopedic surgeon who said he was too fat to have a knee replacement. So when he lost the weight, he went back to the surgeon and said, well, fat guy's no longer here, but I tell you, I just came back to be a friend of yours. I don't need your surgery anymore. And the guy goes, you need my surgery. The orthopedist said, you need my surgery. He says, well, I don't think I do. I don't hurt no more. I don't have any pain anymore, so what do I need your surgery for? So well, let me x-ray you just to make sure. You know what they found out? It wasn't his knee, it was his hip. If they would have operated on the first time, they would have done the wrong joint. He's had both hips replaced, and that's because he walked around at 600 pounds. So, very effective for this man. It can be effective for anybody, but you have to make it work for you. Some great references to read from. My favorite book to give every one of my patients is the South Beach Diet book by Arthur Agustin. It's written at a second grade level. It basically tells you 4 things. Small meals, eat frequently, eat natural foods, stay away from starch and sugar, and be active. I wonder where I got those 4 things from. And they do work. So in my problem, my health issue with my weight, it's not that I eat too much. I never overeat. It's not that I eat bad foods. I don't even like potatoes. Can you figure that one out? No potatoes. I mean, once in a while, if I smell a McDonald's French fry right out of the oven, I'll say, give me one of those, you know, because it does taste good. By the way, McDonald's French fry, #1 food product eaten in America every year since they've been in existence. What's that, 40-some years? #1 food product eaten in America year in and year out, McDonald's French fry. You want to guess how many tons America ate last year? Just America, not China and everywhere else they get McDonald's. 300 million tons. Tons of potatoes.
Just from McDonald's.
Just from McDonald's. It's a lot of spuds, ain't it? That'd bury us 30 feet deep in here in Niles and Buchanan. So, but great book I understand. I make all my patients read it. Protein Power is a great book by Michael and Mary Eads, E-A-D-E-S. They are MD, PhD, husband and wife team. They have a wonderful weight loss clinic out in Colorado, up in the mountains. I think it's 15 grand a week. But they wrote this book, and it is spot on. It came out of Dr. Robert Atkins' work, which is a great book too. It's kind of antiquated. But they took it one step farther and proved it in the lab and then proved it in human clinical practice and did that, really document the effects of insulin on our body, the effects of glucagon on our body, the effects of our diet on the release of both of those things, and affects appropriate diet on our health. And they proved it. They actually set the bar to where it can't be disproven ever again. The problem with their book is they're PhDs. And that means too hard to read in my book. But a great book. And there's Protein Power Foods, by the way. There's South Beach Diet Foods out there, too. None of them are very classy. And then The Zone. Actually, the book's called Beyond the Zone by Barry Sears. He's the guy that kind of set the world on fire with his discovery after Atkins. He's a PhD in nutrition. So if you want to learn about how your eicosanoids work after eating the right foods, it's a great book to read.